Hey there, Scott here from SocialNRG Presents, and thanks for joining us for another great episode. Our guest today is Harvey Lisberg, an English talent manager and impresario. Harvey got his first break at age 23 when he discovered the mega British pop band Hermits, who he agreed to manage. He signed the band to Mickie Most's RAK label, who produced the massive hit I'm Into Something Good. For the duration of the 1960s, the band enjoyed much success in the US and then again in the UK, and were a major part of the British invasion along with the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and many others. His next signing was the songwriter Goldman, who wrote a string of hit songs including For Your Love, Bus Stop, Heart Full of Soul, and many others. In the 1970s, Harvey managed the British rock band 10cc, who enjoyed international smash hits such as I'm Not in Love, The Things We Do for Love, and Dreadlock Holiday. Harvey managed 10cc until the band finally broke up in the 1990s. By the turn of the millennium, he was consulting to the Indian Wells Tennis Garden, where he spotted an opportunity to use their state-of-the-art arena to host music events, and brought international acts such as The Who and the Eagles and others to the desert for the first time. And today, Harvey joins us from his home in California for a look back at his career and to bring us up to speed on what he's been working on next. So sit back, relax, and get ready, as SocialNRG now presents you with your Backstage Pass.
Man, I'm so excited to talk to you. Yeah, you are just such an what a legend you are. Oh my gosh.
I even believe it myself when I read it.
I bet you do. That's fantastic. So are you in LA now?
Rancho Mirage, which is like 10 miles from Palm Springs.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, it's a nice area. So are you a golfer?
I started playing golf when I was about 52 and I packed it in when I was about 75. But I wouldn't call myself a golfer. I walked around the course and I played soldier golf.
They use me to clear out new fairways. I'm usually the guy in the bush with my stick looking for my ball.
Well, I'm always going from one to the next. I got good walks, got around a golf.
Yeah.
I used to enjoy it though. It's fun.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because so many of my friends have, like a guy that I work with a lot, Michael Sicoli. We've been friends since high school. And he is a Scotch golfer, and he is just so good. And he's done it all his life. And then a couple of my other close friends, or a lot of my close friends, have picked it up and they get hooked on it right away. I've played golf enough that I think if I was going to get hooked, I would have been hooked years ago. And now I just sort of do it. It's one of those things where I'll do it. Like I went out golfing with my father-in-law a couple of days back, and now I'm going out with him on Wednesday again. Just because it's a fun get away for me and him. And
it's okay. If you're competitive. And I usually am competitive, but I realized early on that I could never get up to the standard that I want to do without a whole pile of practice. And I wasn't prepared to do it. My wife was a very good player. She got a hole-in-one at St. Andrews, which is bloody good on the 8th hole.
Holy smokes.
Yeah,
wow.
That was a nice story. So, I mean, she was the golfer, and I just walked around and carried the bag sort of. I was joking. I used to muddle around, but she practiced and she cared about it. And I just couldn't get into that passion that other people have. They practice for 5 hours. My uncle played to scratch, and his wife, and when he died, I said to his wife, why was he such a good golfer? So he just played 6 hours a day, every day. Oh, wow. Okay.
My wife's uncle, Uncle Doug, a dear man. We lost him last year, sadly. But he belonged to a local course here called, it was the Royal Colwood. So it actually had the royal, thing attached to it, where it was blessed by royalty or whatever it is they do. But
didn't Trump get hold of it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know his story. He tried to get Trump Turnberry, and he wanted to get he wanted it Trump Turnberry or something like that. And the Royal Ancient Society of Golfers just didn't want to know about. He wanted to have the Open there. They just weren't interested.
my wife's Uncle Doug, I mean, he a lovely man. I think he belonged to the Royal Colwood Golf Course, which was basically across the street from his house for about 45 years. But he did get a couple of holes in one on the same hole.
Wow.
within about 5 years of each other. I think he got his last hole in one about a year before he passed away, actually.
Carol, my wife, got 3 in different things. One in a tournament, one at St Andrews, and one just playing normally. So,
Man,
she was a good player. She played to about 12, so she could, she hit the ball straight. So
yeah. What's her handicap?
Her handicap 12, I say, was hers. Mine was like 24. I never got anywhere. Maybe I got to 19 once, but
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. Well, so, you have your book out now, and I'm into something good, which is apropos title. Did you not come up with the title of that song?
No, it's nothing to do with me. The song was written by Goffin King, Carole King, and Jerry Goffin. And it was out as a record with Earl Jean, 92 in the charts in America. And when it was played to me by Mickie Most, after a long series of events, which led to him offering the track. But
you did suggest the title of another song.
Yeah, Heart Full of Soul.
Heart Full of Soul, of course, yeah.
And funnily enough, my wife came up with a nice album title for a band called Barclay James Harvest, which is Time Honored Ghosts, which is a great title. So,
how long have you been married? Carol is your wife's name, correct?
Correct. 53 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And we got married on the same day as Peter Noon, who's been married 54 years.
Wow. So you're in touch with them as well to this day?
Yeah, I'm in touch with them regularly, yes. We're doing a launch next week of the book in LA, and he's going to come and play a few things there, I think.
And Graham Goldman as well, I suppose?
No, Graham's in...
No, I'm talking about you stay in touch with him.
Not really, no. Graham and I had our, I don't know what you call it, party about 3 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's shameful. You guys had a long history together.
55 years.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting, I once was in Mallorca, and there's a famous writer called Robert Graves, who you might have heard of. He wrote I, Claudius. I saw his son, and he gave me a card, and he says, an ass is like a friend, a good friend. He waits 30 years to give you a good kick.
Yeah.
Which I thought was... No, and Graham and I had a fantastic relationship. We were brothers, brother-in-law, and it's rather sad that it kind of went the way it went. But I think every permutation of that has happened with 10cc, so I don't know if it's the disease of the band or what.
Yeah.
Kevin Lowell don't speak. Eric and Kevin don't speak.
What was that? I missed that again. What'd you say?
I said that I don't know if it's the disease of our band in particular. Kevin and Lowell stopped talking after 27 years being in each other's pocket. Eric and Graham, although they were always in partnership, there was no love lost between the two of them. And what else? The other? Well, it just goes on like that. I just think it's boring. Every band I was involved with, there was some kind of intrigue somewhere or other between the lead singer and the band or whatever it was. It just went on,
Yeah, there's something to do with genius, I think,
I think it's to do with ego.
Yeah, well, ego and genius, right?
Well, yes, it might not be genius. It might just be people get very highly opinionated about their pedigree. Right. I mean, Eric always mixed with Paul McCartney, Dave Mason, really massive Pink Floyd guy, massive stars. And I think in his mind, he probably thought, well, I'm as big as them. But the truth is, no, we're not. That they are Elton Johns and Paul McCartney's, and they're all there. And then there's the next lot lower down. We never got through to that. That was because of our own fault, possibly, in not taking advantage of opportunities that were given to us, possibly. But anyhow, it's horrible talking about splits and all that. It's boring. And B, there's always two sides to a story. So it's just not worth really just blurting out your side, because it'll be refuted or something,
Yes, of course. Yeah. I'm really fortunate. The band that I've been working with, we've been together for 35 years now. That's unbelievable. And there's not many bands that can say that, with no changes. The same guys,
Well, you're lucky they're all living.
Well, that alone is true. Absolutely. We've lost a lot of friends by the wayside over the years,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But okay, I want to get down into the brass tacks. But one more thing. We have a mutual friend, somebody who I was producing during the whole COVID thing, and that's Barry Greenfield.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I just knew it.
Yeah.
I wrote a song for one of the things he did,
That's right. Well, we were working on the Auschwitz thing, and you got heavily involved with that. I was producing that.
Well, what happened was when I was in Israel in 1956, I met this guy called Shlomo Korbach, and I went on stage with him for five gigs or so. He was like an equivalent of an Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox rabbi who played the guitar and had a following of 1 million people with sort of pairs and taluses and everything around them, and they had black coats in Israel charging the stage, and it got me at it. And then I was writing songs, and I wrote this song for him, and I went to New York, and I was in a restaurant. He was playing there, and I said, "I've got this song," and he said, "Come on, Harvey, come on stage and play it." I was really shocked. I didn't want to play on stage in front of a restaurant full of people, and I played it. So that was that. And then Barry did this thing, and I thought, it's so down. I mean, it's depressing is not the word. You're going from, there's nowhere to go. It's like they're saying, what happens to you? Everything comes well in the end. And no, it doesn't. You go in the ground in the end. You know what I mean? So this was the kind of attitude. I said, well, if only we could have something a little bit uplifting. So when they went through the gates out at the end of the thing, you heard this Israeli music that was like, just gave it a little bit of hope. Not much, but just a little bit.
So that piece that we put in called The Prayer, you actually wrote that?
Yeah.
Oh, see, it sounded like a traditional piece to me. I never realized that you actually wrote that.
Yeah. Hu Elokeinu. It's from it's from a service people say every day or every time they go to the synagogue.
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty incredible piece, and Barry's narration voice is incredible. He's got an incredible narration. Well, he's a great storyteller, first of all, just overall. But I've been to Auschwitz like 5 times in my life.
Oh my God.
I had to. What it was is I didn't go there necessarily for myself, but the first time I went, of course, I was shocked. The second time I brought another person that came. I was working in Poland a lot at the time. I would go over there once or twice a year for extended periods of time. So people would come and visit me. So I would take them to Auschwitz, and then it was always Auschwitz. We would go to Krakow, of course, go to Auschwitz, and then go to the salt mines after. Because the salt mines, of course, are, it sort of gets you away from the horror you just witnessed with Auschwitz and Birkenau. But I went there quite a few times. Each time I had a different experience, I've
always avoided it. I've not even been to Yad Vashem in Israel, which I really should have gone to. I think there's something about half a family got wiped out. I don't know. I mean, it's a real story. When I was younger, at my grandmother's house, half their family all got wiped out, and it was never discussed, ever. Ever. Nobody even mentioned any of the family. They were just all gone. And I think that gave me kind of the attitude. I don't like watching it particularly. Maybe I'm a coward. I don't know what it is. I mean, Graham went to Auschwitz a few times. I know that. And most of my friends have been. But I don't feel the urge to go there. I'd quite like to go to the one in Israel, though. I think that would be very beautifully presented, and it'd still be horrific, but I think it would be more interesting to me.
Before we move on, the one thing that my first takeaway, the first time I went there, of course, about them taking away their shoes and their possessions and all that stuff, and of course they've got all their shoes behind this big glass wall, and I walk, and for some reason, of course, I've come to realize, like, we're further away from 1980 than 1980 was to World War II right now, which is a terrible thing to think about. I mean, 1980 seems like yesterday to all of us. But when I was there, I was expecting, like, I guess, hobnail boots or something, like work shoes, all that stuff. And I walk in and I'm seeing these beautiful stilettos and multicolored
Really?
shoes. Like,
That's
it looked like
interesting.
it could have happened yesterday. And it
Wow.
shocked me. It absolutely, I was like, oh, like
Yeah.
that was the realization is, oh my God, like we're not that far away from this moment, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyhow.
let's
I
move
mean,
on.
my friend told me there's a TV series which I refused to watch on Anne Frank. I said, I'm Anne Franked out.
Mm,
But my sister-in-law said, you've got to watch this thing. It's really good. It's on the BBC. But I just don't have any appetite for it. Do you know what I mean? I'd watch it, but I don't want to.
yeah, yeah. Well, I was never interested in history until I started working in Poland, and that's when it started. It started coming up. The drummer in my band, Mark LaFrance, he loves history, and he was always telling me things, and I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then once we got there, and you start immersing yourself in things, you
Well, the
talk.
thing here in America, as you know, it's Juneteenth Day today. The history of America and the slavery and what happened is astonishing. And it's easy how history writes out what it wants to write out. So moving on to the bands, taking it to bands.
Okay.
Bands write out their management, whoever helped them originally, they're subtly left out. So your history for the next generation won't even know. And then on top of that, quite often they're maligned, like Colonel Peter Grant, or nobody has a good word to say about managers normally. There are a few exceptions like Bruce Springsteen, but they're few and far between. So in a way, that was a relief for me to write the book from that point of view. At least I can give my side of the story before I'm forgotten and put into oblivion.
Well, there's a music impresario. I wrote this down, Tony Wilson, because he said Harvey Lisberg virtually invented modern management. In terms of the UK's music history, there really is no one quite like Harvey.
Yeah, that's very nice of him to say that. He died very young, unfortunately. I was friendly with him, and I respected what he did. He was an innovator, Factory Records, the Hacienda, all those bands that came from Manchester. He was certainly a visionary, to say the least. He could see ahead of the time. So any compliments from him are rather good. It helped me got my green card, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I think I might have read that somewhere. I was doing a little bit of,
I'm an
reading up on
alien of extraordinary ability.
it. That's what it takes to get in there,
No, that's what it says on the green. That's what it says when you make your application.
Yeah. Well, I know that at one point in my life, I was actually thinking of getting a green card down there, and there was a guy that was going to sponsor me and all that stuff. And so I sort of know what the protocol is, and you have to be something that's unique. If
Well, as long as you're not taking somebody else's job, that's a good start. And I think probably if you've got all the other ticks to go with it.
Yeah.
When we went to the embassy in London, you could tell this story because it's hysterical. I'm with Carol and we're both applying for green cards. And we're looking behind the counter and there's a guy reading this thing and he's tidying his tie up and everything. And I'm looking at him, I think, because Carol had written a whole spiel about me. Meeting Elvis Presley, this, that, and the other Hermanshermits. And the guy was in awe of me. I went there, he says, did you really do those things? I said, yeah. Accepted, stamped, no problem.
Well,
it's the truth.
So you met Elvis during the Hermits days, correct?
Correct, in 1965.
And he was gracious?
It was lovely.
He was, huh?
We got to Hawaii after a long tour, and we got an invitation. The Colonel and Elvis would like to meet you and the Hermits. Come down to the Polynesian village where we're filming, and we'll meet you. And apparently they kept changing the time of the meeting, which I only found out a few weeks ago from one of the members of Hermanshermits. I could never understand why there was only 3 of the band on the photograph. Myself, well, I'm calling myself one of the band. No, just 2 of the band. Myself, Peter, and Barry Whitwam. And I thought, no Carl Green, no Keith Howard, no Derek Leckenby. Why? Well, because they got fed up that all the time they were changing the meeting and they decided it was never going to happen. So they went back to England and missed out the chance of a lifetime and probably really regretted that.
And how did you find the Colonel as a person? I know it's brief.
Colonel was fantastic. so maligned. He was a character. Nothing like the Tom Hanks portrayal in Elvis. Nothing like that crummy accent that was put out. He had a kind of a southern drawl, from what I can remember. And I met him and he says, a fat Brian Epstein. And I thought, that's a great intro. A great way to start a relationship.
Nice guy.
But the funny thing was, Elvis Presley was like very, very good looking. He had white trousers, flip-flops, bare and bro-cream hair. And he had 6 henchmen, exactly the same. White trousers, flip-flops. So if he coughed, they coughed. If he laughed, they laughed. If he got up, they got up. It was a pantomime beyond belief. No, it's the truth. And I got talking to him, and he was very, very pleasant, very quiet, very, very nice. And I don't even know how well he knew of Hermanshermits, but he probably knew because of the British invasion. And going back to the Colonel, I got very friendly with him afterwards. I went to his 85th birthday party. He was invited to his 90th. And we had a great story with the Colonel. My son, on his 21st birthday, I asked him, what would you like to do? He said, I'd like to go to Las Vegas. And me being a gambler, I was totally shocked. I couldn't believe that that was what he would choose. And we went to Las Vegas. And I said, well, I know the Colonel lives there. Maybe I'll give him a call and see whether we can go around and see him. So I phoned up at 9:30 in the morning, and he said, oh, hi, Harvey. He said, I'm very sorry, I've got a dental appointment. But if it's quick, I'll call you back and we'll go there. Will you come around and see us? And I thought, oh, yeah, the typical brush off, and I wasn't going to do anything. But we waited in the room. And sure enough, 2 hours later, the phone went, okay, Harvey, I'm ready to see you if you'd like to come around. Now I'm panicking because I want to have a limo. But in those days, every time I saw the Colonel and he saw me, there was like 5 Cadillacs or whatever there was. You never went in your own car, or God forbid you did anything normal. So I phoned up the limo firm. I said, I want a town car, but it doesn't have to be a stretch or anything like that. Just a car that will get us there, but I need a limo. They sent this car, which was grey town car. It had bullet holes all the way through the side, through the back. It was probably used by the mafia, And when we got to the house, I said, you can't park. We'll park down the road. So we had to walk in 100 degrees because I didn't want him to see this heap of a car. That was my...
That's hilarious. So you actually kept a relationship with him for all those years, huh?
Yeah, you must give him credit for one thing. He invented merchandising as we know it.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt.
Every single act that earns every penny, and probably most of them earn more from the merchandising than the actual records or their appearances. It's, really good source of income for huge bands. And he was the one that started it. Final story about the Colonel. He said that he had a date in Carolina or somewhere where it was pouring with rain, the forecast for the next day when Elvis was playing before, I think, 30,000 people or something. And the Colonel spent all night trying to find an umbrella manufacturer so he could sell umbrellas.
Well, there was one takeaway from that movie, and I don't think it's a stretch of the truth, where he's got all this, I love Elvis, all this stuff, and all these teddy bears and things like that. And then he had all the I hate Elvis. Because he figured, well, they're going to sell it. We might as well sell it too,
Yeah, no, it's very good. And the other thing he did I knew that he'd done with MGM, was after the film was completed, he asked the executive from MGM, by the way, that watch that Elvis was wearing in the film, did you get permission to use that watch? And they said, no. He said, well, I want $250,000 for the use of that watch. And if you don't, then just take the scenes out with Elvis, relate with that watch showing.
Oh, so my God.
He's tough.
Holy crap. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. But when all said and done, without the Colonel, would Elvis ever have been Elvis? Who knows?
Yeah, one never really knows. I mean, you were talking about merchandising and stuff, and that's one of the things where, Brian Epstein, I mean, he was so new to management. That's why
we were all new.
Yeah, well, but you handle it in a much better way. I think he was probably learned by his mistakes, because one of the things with the Beatles, and I've heard this attributed to why the Beatles' popularity is still fairly relevant, aside from their great music, etc. But they basically gave away everything, like Beatle boots, Beatle wigs, Beatle this. It was like they didn't think it was going to last, and they'd never dealt with that kind of merchandising before, and they sort of gave it away. So people were still selling those things 20, 30 years after and making all the money from them.
It's possibly true that, but you learn from your mistakes. I spent 20 years in the music business, and any newspaper that would come on and want an article for Peter Noon or anybody, I'd jump at it. I subsequently managed Alex Higgins, who was a wild man of snooker, which I don't know how popular it is in Canada, but a really wild man of snooker. And he used to charge the papers. So they don't want an interview. I want £600. I said, you're joking. I said, yeah. And all the papers paid him. Each time he did an article, they paid him.
Wow. Fascinating.
Well, you think about it, the papers are getting things for nothing. TV's getting things for nothing. Everybody's using, in the footballers' case, they never paid them any money. They got a huge 70,000 people and paid them £15 a week. And the record companies paid 1%. In those days, there was a lot of exploitation on a grand scale, but it was subtle.
Well, if you think about MTV, like, oh my gosh, they were getting all of their product for free because it was advertising. Yeah. And then they would sell advertising on top of it. What a moneymaker.
Yeah. Yeah.
These record companies just wanted a place for their videos to be seen. Okay, we'll give you a station, supply us. It's like, oh, wow, what a great idea.
Yeah.
But one thing that really struck me is that in the height, I think it was like, maybe it was very early on, but you were like 25 years old when you were pulling all this stuff off. You were really young.
Yeah.
And if I read this correctly, were you still kind of kept what we refer to as your day job? You didn't really get into full-time management until a few years into it?
I was an accountant, bored out of my mind, and I was musical because I played the guitar and piano and wrote songs. And I decided I needed to get a band to play my songs, because wherever I tried to place them, there weren't great songs. There were songs on the level of I'm Telling You Now, or, the Freddie or the Jerry and the Pacemaker. They weren't the classic Beatles. They were the, not saying stupid ones, but
the Mersey beat feel. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to do that. It didn't work. So I thought, right, well, we'll get our own band. And I got Hermans, of course, to do it. And I was still an article clerk. I got a university degree, so I've avoided 3 of the 5 years that you have to do to become an accountant. And I was in my probably my final year. So I was probably about 22 or 23. And then I have to get through my finals, and I've not done any work because I've been booking the bands and doing this, that, and the other. I was with a very nice accountancy firm that was very amenable to me being in the entertainment business, hobby-wise, because they represented the biggest agents in England, which was the Grade organisation, which was huge, had every single celebrity you could name. And so they did the audit of the grades, and they knew that it was potential. So I could go down to TV studio, the office manager would let me go off early to get there. They were very helpful that way. And I just had the feeling that it was going to happen, because the date sheet was getting fuller and fuller all the time, and things started to happen. And then when I'm on so I go to a cram course to get my finals, because there's no way I could have got them without doing any work. And while I was on the cram course, I'm phoning America to find out the sales figures of I'm Into Something Good from the MGM sales force on a payphone that kept running out. And it was like, it got crazier and crazier and crazier. Finally, I said to my father, look, I've got to make a decision here. I can always do accountancy later on. I had no intention of being an accountant instead. I always wanted to be a stockbroker, but that's another story. But to get to be a stockbroker, I was going to be an accountant first. All to do with gambling and stocks and shares and craziness. That was me in those days. So that's what happened, and my father agreed. And the joke was, I wrote these songs, and my father always used to say, well, then maybe they're not that good, the songs. And the Hermanshermits did as the B-side of I'm Into Something Good, Your Hand in Mine, which is a song I wrote with my ex-partner, Charlie Silverman. And when we got the first royalty check, which was £6,000, which in 1963 for 23 years was a lot of money, I bought my parents a house. And my father said, well, maybe they weren't that bad. And I thought, but yes, they were.
Well, you were smart to take the B side. I mean, gosh.
Well, it wasn't so much that, because the whole idea of me getting a band was they were going to do my music, and they did. We went to the BBC and did another song called Only You, which has never been released. And so they had the songs, and Mickie Most needed a B-side, so they did it. And I think the group were probably appreciative of the work I'd done to get them into a studio, get a recording deal. Everything was very positive from their point of view. Everybody that I knew was telling me what an idiot I was. What am I wasting my time with a band of rubbish? Give me a break and get on with a normal job. Well, so the first record goes to #1. And instead of all saying congratulations, oh, it's just a one-hit wonder, you know, that's what they got next. Yeah. And after about 12 hits, they shut up.
Well, let's circle back here. Okay, so how did you, Hermits was your first act?
Yeah.
And so how did that come about?
Well, I was trying to peddle my songs, as I say, to various people unsuccessfully. And I decided I want to get my own band. So I got hold of an Evening News, which is the main Manchester paper. And I said, look, I'm going to have a competition for bands. And we had a competition in the finals. This band was appearing at Collingwood, which is a suburb of Manchester. And I went to see them. They, in the meantime, had heard that management or somebody who was interested in them was coming to see them. And it was at a time when everything was exploding around the Beatles and everything else was going crazy in Liverpool. And I went there, and they were doing the usual set of numbers. Like every band did the same thing. Chuck Berry, Everly Brothers. I saw us standing there. Every band did the same thing. It's just weird. And after each number, the stage was charged by 50 screaming girls. And I thought, I've won the national lottery. This is the band for me. I found out later that they'd planted people in the audience. They knew we were coming, and they baked a cake.
Wow.
So anyhow, I went back to Peter's house after the gig. I started playing the piano, just messing around on it. And he said, do I want to join the band? I said, no. I'd like to be a manager. That's what happened.
Isn't that something? And so what was the timeline between you meeting to them getting into a studio to a contract? How quickly did it happen for you?
Well, it's all less than a year, but it might be even less than that. Something like that, you know. I started with them, got them a full date sheet, got them working, and then got the break when I went into the manager of a dance hall in Manchester, where the gig was a lunchtime gig, which the boys were doing. And I found a letter on a piece of paper in his office from EMI. And EMI were the big thing. And the function of the manager was to get a recording deal. That was the main thing of all. Not even the song. Get a recording deal, then you're on your way. And I saw this thing, and at the bottom it had Derek Everett, the bottom signature on the letter. And I said to the manager of the hall, Terry Devine, do you mind if I have that letter? I want to try and contact this guy with a view to trying to get a recording contract. So he said, sure. I wrote to Derek Everett a letter of total lies, but very flattering to him, how well we knew him, and we're looking forward to meeting him. He said, come down and see me. And just as I walked through the door, he said, Harvey, by the way, I've nothing to do with A&R. I just physically put records in dance halls for EMI, and nothing to do with it. And my face dropped. I must have been deflated to do this. But there's a new kid on the block. Have you heard House of the Rising Sun? I said, yeah, it's fantastic. Well, this producer, Mickie Most, he's around. Maybe you should go and take the picture of the band to him. So I did. And that's how that got to him. And then he wouldn't, I showed him the picture. Yeah, I'll come and see the band. And he didn't, obviously. And I decided to send him 2 tickets, airline tickets from London to Manchester, put him in a 5-star hotel and say, would you come up just for one night to see the band? They're appearing in Bolton. Took him to Bolton. He saw the band. He liked the band. He came with me back to the hotel, and I had a Triumph Herald, an old clapped out car, which was my mother's. But I've invested in the first, I was mad on music. I invested on the first record player. It goes in a car. It was a Philips of independent suspension. If you put a 45 in, you go over a bump, it still plays it. So this was a real gimmicky thing. So although I had a stupid car, it's Bentley type record player in the car.
Wow.
He said, I've got a record for you. Do you want to hear it? I said, yeah, okay. Plugs it in. I'm into something good by Gene. And I thought, oh, that is just fantastic. So he said, well, as long as you get rid of 2 members of the group who can't play, I will give you record this song with them. I then had the dilemma. I mean, the band had been working all that time with the band. I had to suddenly get rid of a drummer, get rid of the bass player. That was not easy. And we told Peter helped me out on that. We went to his house and we told Alan Wrigley. We told the other guy the drummer wasn't very good. It didn't really matter. I mean, he wasn't right. But Alan Wrigley had a wonderful look. He looked like Marlon Brando, very, very, very fierce, very tough looking. Apparently his father was in jail for a capital crime. So you didn't mess with Alan. He was always tough. And I thought, how are we going to handle this? And then we told him he had to leave the band because we had no choice. Of that or we didn't get a recording contract. Anyhow, he dashed out of the room in a temper. And I got in the car, the van with Peter afterwards. We drove out of his drive. And Alan Wrigley's lying across the front of the road. Lying. So you couldn't get past him. I just swerved the car to get past him. That was his protest. And I was thinking in the next 2 weeks, not being a very brave person, but somebody's going to come with a knife. I'm always looking over my shoulder in case Alan Wrigley appeared.
Well, you can see why you'd feel that way. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's a capital crime. It was a serious crime. Father was in for it.
Well, I'm into something good. What a prophetic title! That was their first release.
Yeah,
yeah, fantastic. But it's interesting because I remember reading about, 5 or 6 years ago, the first song I ever remember learning by Hermans was "Listen People," and that was Graham Goldman's song.
No, that was in the film, and that's a wonderful story if you want to hear it.
Sure.
We had a pokey office above a Chinese restaurant. The smell was, all you smelled was curry smells and things. It was really down market, you know. It was not overlooking Sunset Boulevard from the 15th floor. There was no windows. It was inside a building. And I go on a Monday morning and there's a guy with a cigar that's about 2 feet long, stood there in a seersucker suit and his mate standing there. And he said, "You Harvey Lisberg?" I said, yeah, I'm Harvey Lisberg. "We want your boys for a film." I said, "No, we're fully booked. We couldn't possibly do it." Because I thought, well, a film's going to be 2 months, 3 months. And the date sheet was crammed. We just want them for 2 days. I said, "I can't do it. There's no way. We'll give you $45,000. I said, "The money doesn't matter. It's not. Is there anything we can give you?" I said, "Okay, we'll take a Cadillac." You got it. Before I'd finished the sentence, a bloody big white Cadillac arrived. And we went and did. And then the next thing, we had to do 2 songs. And we couldn't publish them because it was owned by the Gershwin estate. Apparently, they had the music in the film, so they published this thing. And they did this track of Listen People, which is a song Graham had written, and it became #2 in America.
Yeah, it was a wonderful song. Well, I mean, I had the Hermits Greatest Hits album, sort of by proxy. My brothers were much older than me. They had all the record collection and stuff, but I played that thing incessantly. You know, they did a cover of Sea Cruise on it, and there was
Mickie Most had a huge hits in America, and not America. I'm sorry, in South Africa. Before he started as a record producer, he was the Most Brothers in South Africa, and they had a huge hit with Sea Cruise.
Oh, well, because I know
presumably he published it.
I'm sorry, what?
Presumably he published it.
Oh, okay. But like what a great array of songs, and Hermits came out at a particularly perfect time because they were sort of the antithesis of the Rolling Stones. Peter Noone was like so sparkly clean and sweet. Every parent loved him.
I tell that story. I say if a Beatles came around, the mother would look and think, I don't really like the look of that kid. If a Rolling Stones came around, she'd go right for the cyanide, got to commit suicide, I can't take that. But if Peter came around, blue-eyed, Catholic, good-looking, boy next door, JFK-like, great. So we had that out of everybody. It was the boy next door.
Yeah, he certainly was, and he was so young. He was like 17 or something when they broke
Yeah,
bread.
every time we went to America, I had to go to Bow Street Court to get um, a license in loco parentis of taking a minor into America, because otherwise I wouldn't have got a visa.
Wow. Can you tell me your story and what was it like doing the Ed Sullivan Show?
It was weird. It was really weird. I mean, because he kept making mistakes. There were so many mistakes he made introducing bands, and it was weird. It was a very good show to get. And I remember going to the gig, and there were lots of people, girls in the street outside, and it was a very big. I can't really say I've got anything interesting to say about it, except I was rather amused that this was the biggest star in America who kept introducing people, pronouncing the names wrong and getting there. I don't know what he did. I can't remember where he got us wrong, but he certainly got some other people. Even like the Rolling Stones, I mean, it just introduced them incorrectly. It's so funny. And it was a big show. It was very good that we got it.
I was talking with Felix Cavalieri from the Rascals, and his thing with the Ed Sullivan Show, he said he loved it because he actually paid the acts well. Like that's
Yeah, and I'm sure I don't really. I mean, we were getting so much money at that time. I don't think money was an issue then. I mean, money was like printing monopoly money.
Yeah.
Everything you did turned to a hit. Every bet you did won. You just go through a stage in your life where everything goes right, and then you wait for the calamities that will come later on. And then when you get really old, the real calamities start.
So Peter, he tours solo now, but there's also a version of Herman's Hermits touring, is there not?
Yeah, there is. Barry Whitlam goes around as Herman's Hermits, and that's been going on. There was kind of when Peter left the Hermits, I think had a law case with him or something, and they managed to retain permission to use the name, or Peter wasn't to use the name, or something like that. But eventually it all cleared itself up, and they go down around the world doing Herman's Hermits music.
And who's the singer?
They have different singers. I mean, the last time I saw it was somebody called Jeff, I forget his second name, who was a very good songwriter. No, the songs were okay, but it wasn't. Peter Noon is so polished now. He's just brilliant. I saw him a few years ago, and his act is so much better now than it was then. And he's got the patter. He's been doing it for years.
Yeah.
It's water off a duck's back.
Is he as nice a guy as he appears to be?
He's very nice. Very impressed with him. He's happily married man, 53 years, 54 years. I mean, he's nice.
So he's a settled soul.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, which is great. So can we circle around now to you? Now, Graham Goldman, how did you and Graham Goldman start working together? And that's another thing that I was blown away at how young he was when he was writing songs like Bus Stop and No Milk Today and all these hits and For Your Love and all. It's like, holy smokes, what a pedigree. He had a pedigree like an arm's length long, like 10 years before there was even a thought of 10cc.
Yeah, he was in a band called the Whirlwinds, which is a very good band, which played all popular songs and a lot of Italian music. And I always liked him, and I knew him from the Jewish Lads Brigade, where he played in practice there. And he was a great guitarist. I approached him, couldn't get through to him very easily early on because he had an arrogant manager who was terribly, terribly awkward. You couldn't get near the band. It was just strange. And when I started to have some success with Herman's Hermits, I decided to revisit Graham and say, look, you've been going on for so many years, you're not really getting anywhere, you've not got a recording. Well, I don't think they had a recording deal. Really, you're going around in circles. Why don't you come with us and we'll try and do something? And he did. We started songwriting together. And it was like 9 to 5 every day. At his house, we'd write songs and do all sorts of things and work together. I was like an editor. Do you like this? No. Do you like, yeah, keep that, put that away, with sort of bits and pieces. And then finally we had the brainwave, we'll write a song on House of the Rising Sun chords, which everybody played that played the guitar ad nauseum. And he changed the last chord very quietly, surreptitiously, so you wouldn't really know. And he started out doing the For Your Love bit. And then in the middle, we said, well, come on, let's change the rhythm, try something different. And he got to the rock and roll part. And then his father, who's a playwright, wrote a whole pile of lyrics, nothing to do, or I'm not saying nothing to do with Graham, but these were the lyrics from his father. They were terribly flowery. I didn't like them at all. But Graham did the stuff and put the lyrics down. And people sometimes ask me, how could a 17-year-old write lyrics like that? The answer is it didn't. It was a 45-year-old playwright. He was a bit of a genius that wrote them. And Jaime always came up with good ideas like No Milk Today. That was Jaime's idea from Milk Buckle, Art for Art's Sake, which is pretty well. You know, he was his lyrics are really Behind the Door, which is a classic of Tensi's, just a classic.
Well, I heard that he wrote "Bus Stop Wet Day, She's There, I Say, Please Share My Umbrella," and the rest of it Graham took from there.
Yeah, but umbrella is the main word, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, umbrella is the word you don't think about.
Yeah.
And Jaime was very good at that. He used to say to me, you need an open sound at the end of it. He knew exactly what was going on with words and sounds, cellar door, and he could say an open sound at the end. He was very, very clever and very good. I mean, very unfortunate he wasn't more successful as a playwright, but he lived all his success through his son, which was great.
Mm. Now, I'm going to probably have to move on now to I mean, your history is so vast. Can you tell me some stuff about the Yardbirds? Because, of course, Graham wrote some hits for them, or a couple at least.
Well, For Your Love was the song, For Your Love was the song that when he finished it, I said, I think that's the song for the Beatles. It's a number one. Let's get it to the Beatles. And Graham thought I was mad. Everybody thought I was. Well, I was mad, so let's leave it at that. But I was going to get it to the Beatles, whatever happened, because the Beatles were the band that I worshipped and Graham worshipped. And we bought the records the first day they came out and played them all day and night till our parents had heart attacks listening to the Beatles. Anyhow, so I said to Graham, well, we're going to see them. So I got tickets for the Hammersmith Odeon. We went to see the Beatles there. And the publishers that published this song, because I was really green then. I didn't know what day it was. We got publishing or anything. And he was the publisher. And I said, can you get this song to the Beatles in the interval and let me know what they think of it? Because being a publisher, in those days, publishers were really powerful. You know, they were respected. Tim Panally was booming. And if you had a good company in Tim Panally, people listen to you, like even with Barry Greenfield, you mentioned before, you know, you go to Tim Panally, you play the songs to the people there. Anyhow, he comes back after the interval, he says, do you mind if I play it to the Yardbirds, the opening act on the show? I said, I do, man, yeah, that's for the Beatles. Who the hell are the Yardbirds? I don't know the Yardbirds from Adam. I said, what, they're some blues group or something? No way. And he said, well, would you meet George Okomolsky, the manager, who was originally manager of the Rolling Stones, owned the Crawdaddy Club, who had the house band, the Rolling Stones, and then subsequently the Yardbirds. And he had a Russian talk like that, very deep voice, Harvey, you know, really deep Russian voice. Looked a bit like Rasputin with the beard down to here, and a really Russian. I mean, he was an incredible character, and he charmed me. He said, can I just try it? I said, yes, try it, God. Anyhow, Eric Clapton had a fit because it's not what he wanted to do. No. He was in the Yardbirds. He didn't want to do pop. He wanted to do blues, rhythm and blues. And he's interested in this band. He left the band because of that. And then Jeff Beck came in, another unknown. You know, it's like, it goes on and on. That song on its own, you could write a book on that song.
And then Heart Full of Soul as well.
Heart Full of Soul was the... that's been credited to me. I thought of the title, which I'm very proud of. Also represents over 50% of the song, you know, and I didn't get a writer's credit.
Yeah, well, that was the song I made a mistake on earlier. Now talking about Herman's Hermits. Now, because you were involved with Led Zeppelin's manager, but I'm trying to get a timeline here because there's a time where Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones played on Herman's Hermits songs, correct?
John Paul Jones did the arrangement to all of Herman's Hermits orchestral work. He also did all the work on Graham Goldman's solo album and was a very close friend of Graham. And Mickie Most obviously worshipped him. And then Peter Grant worked in the same office as Mickie Most. So they both had chair next to each. And Peter represented a band called the New Vaudeville Band, Winchester Cathedral.
Right.
And that was the #1 smash at the time. There's no talk of Led Zeppelin then, but then he was also originally, I think, a road manager for Gene Vincent, I think. I'm not sure whether it was Gene Vincent or somebody else, and then I got very friendly with him in those days. Jimmy Page, not so much. Jimmy Page played on the records. Hermanshermits played on their first record, I'm Into Something Good, and subsequently don't think played on many others. I think Mickie Most used top session men from all over the place, mainly because of expediency and getting it done quicker, which was no credit to the band and also undermined their ability to develop musically, which is rather sad.
Well, I remember, I've always wondered who did that opening 12-string riff on Silhouettes. Because, man, that was a tough lick for me to learn as a kid, boy.
Yeah, well, it was either Big Jim Sullivan or Jimmy Page. It was one of the names. Because Derek Leckenby, I was playing the guitar and Derek Leckenby played this riff. And I said, I want to learn that riff. And I couldn't do that riff for love nor money. I don't know what it was. It was not that easy to do. And I don't think Derek did it, Derek Leckenby. I don't think he did. I'm not sure. But he could play it perfectly. I mean, he was really a good guitarist, Derek Leckenby. Mm-hmm. He thought the riff out to Henry VIII, which was very good, like a very tight riff. Now, we had a good team there in our own, but I think Mickie just used the top musicians, drummers who played on every record, and Jimmy Page, and all those people played as session musicians in those days.
So, but Hermits as a collective unit, they were a good band.
They could perform on stage because they were all very good. They were very, very good singing, and they used all the voices. Obviously, the records, the voices were used, but they weren't used as much as they might have been. And the music, when they wrote songs, they weren't encouraged particularly by Mickie. He wasn't. He was a genius at picking songs from various genres. He picked, Dandy by the Kinks, David Bowie, Oh You Pretty Things, Museum, Donovan. I mean, Hot Chocolate, Bet Your Life I Do, Jeff Stevens, Sentimental Friends. I mean, they were all a cross-section. It was never just one writer all the time. So you got that tremendous wealth of #1s through Mickey's ears.
Mm. Yeah, well, it's interesting, though, because you were talking about, wasn't there a time when you were either approached by or you approached Queen for management?
Yes, Queen were looking for management, and I said to Peter Grant, who I was very friendly with, I said, look, why don't we put a bid in together? You manage the biggest rock band in the world for performances. I managed Hermanshermits and 10cc. How the hell are they going to refuse us? I initially started getting Wimbledon tickets for Roger Taylor, who's a tennis freak, and I could get tickets for anything. It was one of my fortes, useful as a manager. And we went for a meeting with the 4 members of Queen, and Jim Beach was the accountant, myself and Peter. And we said we'd pitch to them. But Peter wanted them to be on Swan Song as well, which is a new label. Which
that was Led Zeppelin's label, correct?
Yes, and he wanted Queen on there. And they refused, they backed out of us. They said, no, we're not going to sign with you. They signed with John Reed, who they slung out after 2 years. And I don't know whether I don't know how they could have refused us, but maybe they didn't want to be on Swan Song. And I don't blame them for that, because that was a new entity.
It's amazing that, here's the manager of 10cc and Hermits and the manager of Led Zeppelin approaching Queen saying, we'd love to take you on. Now talk about a powerhouse management team. Holy
I know. It was impossible. I don't want to discuss the other reasons they might have joined John Reed, but put it this way. I wasn't that upset, because if I had taken them on, I would have had a hell of a time with 10cc. Because that Queen and 10cc were almost in competition at that stage, because Queen hadn't evolved as they hadn't done the Live Aid or anything like that yet. They hadn't become megastars. They were just stars.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there was the One Night in Paris opera that 10cc wrote, and there's always been some controversy that maybe Queen kind of nicked that idea for Bohemian Rhapsody.
It's hard to say. I mean, you can really analyze any piece of music or any song, and poor old Andrew Lloyd Webber gets accused of God knows what, plagiarizing classical music or God knows what. I don't look at it that way. I mean, you know, so what? I mean, we were influenced by the Beatles. Maybe we didn't steal directly, but if the Beatles hadn't been there, we wouldn't have been doing songs, structuring guitar type stuff, you know.
Well, lately there's been things coming across the internet and stuff where you can see where the Beatles nicked. Like there was the
oh yes, oh darling from Ricky Valens, all sorts of things. Yeah.
Or Albatross by Fleetwood Mac, and you listen to Sun King. It's like, oh my gosh, it's a direct rip. There was another thing about McCartney. What the heck was the name of that song? Well, he wrote Lady Madonna based around, he found out that the very piano, it might have been the Mrs. Mills piano that was the famous piano in Abbey Road.
Yes.
And he had asked if this song, and I think one of the engineers was there that had done that particular song, and he went, wow, that's such a cool piano sound. How did you get it? And they told him, and he wrote Lady Madonna based on that, and it's basically a rip of that song too, you know.
Well, yeah, it's hard to write original music that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, as they say, there's only 12 notes, right?
The country and western thing is the best. I had to get a country and western song version done, and then we did a great song in Manchester. They're not going to accept country and western from Manchester. So I have a friend, Mark Jordan, who you might have heard of, not the Canadian Mark Jordan, the American Mark Jordan, who used to be the MD for Bonnie Raitt. And I said, you know, I've got this song, it's very simple, it's only 3 chords. He says, yes. He says, and the difficult ones here, I've got 4 chords. It's brilliant.
That's funny. I've been working and writing with a guy recently, John Graham, and he often remarks that he only knows 7 chords. But
my theory originally,
but with a capo, he learns a lot more.
But I love songs that are done on 3 chords, like Que Sera Sera. It's just, you know, it's 3 chords. It's nothing clever.
Oh, and think about Que Sera Sera. There's a great when you go Baby Hold On to Me by what's his name? Baby, hold on to me. Whatever will be to be. The future is ours to see. When you hold on to me. Eddie Money. It was, he just took the words from Que Sera Sera and put it to a different song.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's interesting. There's rips everywhere. I gotta talk to you about Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice. Now you heard Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat very, very early in its inception, and you always believed in it. But what happened? Did it just go on too long, and it ended up you weren't?
No. They came up to me with a song called "Any Dream." I Fancy You for Hermanshermits. That's how they came to me. Came to the office with this demo. And I played it to Mickie Most, and he rejected it, and subsequently became a #1 for Jason Donovan out of the show. And I said, have you got anything else other than that single? Oh, yeah, we've just done a performance of a musical called Joseph and the Dreamcoat. And I said, what, Joseph in the Bible? Yeah, Joseph in the Bible. And Tim Rice was Potiphar on it. And I thought, wow, the evangelicals in America are going to just lap this up. Brilliant. Yeah. Yes, I'll take that. And I went around 16 record companies. I was the most powerful, well, one of the top 5 managers in the world. And each head of each company rejected it. And not only rejected it, really insulted it as well. What's this? How are you serious? This is just a load of rubbish. Anyhow, I thought there was something there. All the bands and all the songwriters who I've managed were all laughing at me, saying, you know, there's nothing there. What are you doing? And I just thought there was something there. So I said, look, I'll put you on a management development deal and pay them £5 each a week or something like that for Tim and Andrew. And they signed for 2 years. And during those 2 years, not very much happened. We got the rejection on Joseph. We got total rejection everywhere else. And they said, well, we're about to renew the contract for a 3-year proper management contract at that stage. Well, we've done this album called Jesus Christ Superstar. And I thought, I can't handle this. I'm in North Manchester ghetto Jewish community. And I'm a big star, of course, because I'm managing pop groups and God knows what. I can't be selling Jesus Christ to this lot. They're going to go out of their minds. So that really influenced me to a degree that I thought, well, I'll let you go. And look, we left as good friends. And I went to see the opening night of Evita. Tony Christie was McGalding on the album of Evita. And I always kept in touch with Tim Rice. And he sent me lyrics to a song in 2000 and something for Graham, and Graham did it, a song called Monk in the Onion, which is an extraordinary song. And to this day, I still speak to Tim. He's a great character. Andrew is a perfectionist, and Andrew's one of those people, Paul McCartney-ish in a way, everything had to be spot on. I saw him every time I went to see Evita, and I saw it quite a few times. He's at the back with notes. And this is after the performance. It's sold out for 12 weeks, but he's still there getting it all together because he wants this fixing, that fixing. He was I don't know, a perfectionist, absolute perfectionist.
What was the timeline between you hearing of Joseph the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat to, let's say, because to me, their names really came to prominence.
We have 65 to 67. And 68, I think Jesus Christ came out, and probably 70, Evita, and maybe 71, sort of thing.
Now, do you think because Hair was such a success on Broadway, that opened the door for Jesus Christ Superstar?
I don't know. I don't really. No, I don't think that at all. No, I think Jesus Christ is a very good subject. If I'd have been Catholic, I'd have signed them up, and I'd have been there, and I'd probably be dead today because I'd have made so much money that my excesses would have got out of proportion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great subject matter, but it's like, you were talking about how people were, sort of turning down the Joseph thing. They
didn't see it. Record companies, they don't know. The people in record companies, they're pretty awful, really. They don't really know what day it is. I mean, well, the interesting thing was I didn't know how big it was going to be, in fairness. I just thought, well, that should really catch on and it should become a standard musical where schools would do it. I mean, the potential was obviously right. The lyrics were and it was pleasant. Okay, it wasn't the greatest thing since sliced bread, but they certainly turned out some great things later on. I mean, Evita, Phantom of the Opera, Cats. I mean, they took over. We did the British invasion on the music. They did the British invasion on Broadway. So like the 60s and 70s, England ruled the world in entertainment.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I want to once again circle back a bit, and where were you born?
Salford, near Manchester.
And and that's where you went to school, etc. You spent your...
Yeah, I went to school. I went to University of Manchester, yeah.
And good student?
It's a hard question to answer. Okay, yeah, I was all right. Yeah. I went... yeah.
And you had good friends, a good childhood is basically what I'm going at. You were close with your parents, etc.
Yeah, I was only child, firstborn of a family, a massive family. My grandmother had 9 brothers and sisters, and I was the first grandchild, male grandchild on that side. So I was totally smothered with affection from my mother. My father in the war, he went to Italy, so he was away. I didn't see him till I was about 5 or 6. And I was impregnable in my own mind. I had so much love smothered on me that nothing was going to stop me. I mean, I did things that people didn't do. I met Prince Charles as he was then, and 10cc had just done a concert with the Halle Orchestra. And I said to him, this is in maybe about 1980. It was actually the day the week he started going, what was announced the Diana wedding, and now we were hoping she was going to come up, and she didn't. And we, in the interval, I know after the show, the owner of the theatre, I was a director on the Palace Theatre Trust, and said, "Would you like to meet Prince Charles? We've got a little room where you can come and meet him." So I had a chat with him. You don't ask questions of the royalty, apparently. It doesn't matter to me. I said, "Did you enjoy the show?" Yeah, yes. I said, "I suppose, do you like 10cc?" "Well, I've never heard of 10cc." So I carry on the interrogation. I said, "Well, don't you listen to Radio 1? He says, "No." He says, "I sometimes listen to the radio. I don't get much chance to listen to the radio, but I do listen to Radio 4 on my way to Ascot." And I thought, the future King of England does not know 10cc, does not know I'm Not in Love. One of the biggest exports in England must have been music. And there was the future King of England. But I think Diana sorted him out.
Yeah. Well, and I'm Not in Love. You know, you mentioned that. Oh my God, what a masterpiece! I'm still blown away with that song and how they went about recording it. Just that whole thing, and even the fact that the drums aren't actually drums; it's just a Moog synthesizer with a pulse. You know,
it was genius.
Just everything about that song is absolute perfection. And
I heard it for the first time unmixed in the studio, and I knew after about 20 seconds it was something extraordinary. And then when it had finished, my only thoughts as a commercial manager was, "That's a bit long." You know, how the hell are we going to get that played on the radio, which only had 3 minutes per track? 3 minutes. Anyhow, we managed to overcome that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and Goldman, what a genius! Like, what a genius! Well, all the guys in 10cc were, you know.
Oh, absolutely. You couldn't decry Kevin Law's contribution. It was astounding. And they wrote beautiful songs from when we signed them up in 1964, 10 years earlier. And I mean, their songs, even them, were magnificent. And they did lots of recordings pre-Strawberry Studios where they acted as session men, and they put records out, and none of them seemed to happen. And then it all evolved through Neanderthal Man, which was unusual to say the least, then Donna, everything started, and then they got into their normal pattern, turning out masterpieces.
Yeah, just absolutely incredible. Like, it's amazing, these groups that you've managed, and there were groups that were just so important to people like me, like, you know, through my musical development, you know, unbelievable stuff. But
well, I think if you analyze it, 10cc were a critic's favorite, but they weren't in the A1 division I was talking about before, basically because they didn't concentrate on their image or worry about their image. All they cared about was that the sound was perfect in every concert. And I think the sound can be bought on record if you want perfection. You want a performance when you go on stage. So I always thought of Freddie Mercury, and, you know, Lol had a good personality. It could have been worked on. Kevin Lol were geniuses at videos. They had all the artistic ideas if they'd incorporated that. And then coup de grace was when they turned down the Eagles tour as opening act. When I'm Not in Love was like moving up the charts, the album. And that would have bust them into the stratosphere. But they refused to go on as an opening act. The only time they ever did an opening act was Nebworth.
Wow. I sort of curated some pictures off the internet. I was hoping you could comment on them. Do you have some time?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I'm going to share the screen, so hopefully you can see this.
That's myself and Peter on the Bahamas on holiday. You know, it's a nice picture.
How old would you guys have been there?
Probably 26. And Peter would have been 17 or 18.
Incredible.
That's my wedding day to Carol. That was the 5th of November, 1969. That's Peter kissing her, and that's Peter's wife, Mireille.
And you're all still together?
Yeah, and we've all got married on the same date.
Yeah, you were saying a year apart.
Guy Fawkes Day.
Yeah.
Right, that's Jonathan King on the left, myself 10cc, Don Wardell in the background behind Lol. That was just, in America, I think just a photo of the band after we've had some success. It looks as though Lol's carrying some kind of maybe it's just a drink. No,
I think it's just a drink. Yeah, that's what it looks like here.
Yeah.
And next.
Oh yeah, that's Graham and Andrew Gold and Eric.
There's another talent, Andrew Gold. Oh my
Brilliant.
gosh. Oh. Yeah. Incredible. A multi-instrumentalist and some of the greatest songs. I loved Lonely Boy was just stunning. What a stunning song.
So was Thank You for Being a Friend.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah, that was his biggest hit, but I absolutely just amazing stuff. And of course him and Graham had that project together.
And they did together, but Andrew initially was a producer for 10cc.
He was?
He produced some tracks on the album, Warner's album later on. Yeah. That's how it all started.
I didn't know that. Wow, that's something I didn't know. Oh. And here we go.
That's very, very early days. That's Peter Noon at 16. Left Barry Whitwer and Keith Hotwood. Peter Noon, Carl Green, Derek Leckenby with glasses, unfortunately died young.
What happened?
Oh, some kind of a cancer, I think. He died at a very young age. I don't know, he was under 50. It's very sad.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right, so after 10cc split, there was no communication between the band at all. Kevin, Lol went their way, Graham, Eric went their way, and I had the idea to put them together for a video when Eric and Graham had done Feel the Love, a track. And I said, why don't we get Godly Cream to do the video? Because they're the best video people in the world. And we went to Shepperton, we did this track. It was a wonderful summer's day, and it was the first time they'd spoken in probably 10 years or something or whatever. That was really exciting.
And what year would this have been,
So it must have been about 81, I would think, something around there. Something around. Hang on a sec. Do you know what year the photograph of myself, Feel the Love? What year was Feel the Love? Feel the Love. Can you look it up while I'm talking? Yeah. Okay, I'll let you know in a minute. Okay.
Great, thank you.
That's the last night of Herman's Hermits, when they decided we're finished, they're all going to part as friends now. On the left-hand side is Graham Goldman, extreme left. That's his wife, Susan, who is my sister-in-law, my wife's sister. The next one on the front is Carol, my wife. I'm the one grinning like a Cheshire Cat behind. 1983 was the Feel the Love.
Okay, thank you very much.
Barry Whitwam is there. Then Mireille is sitting on Peter's knee on the front. Carl Green's the one with massive hair. Peter Carr is a wonderful songwriter who used to manage, who took over from Peter, leading the Hermits. Behind him is Lenny Leckenby, and Leck is behind that. John Wright is a friend of mine from early accounting days, became the secretary of Hermanshermits fan club, traveled the world when I needed somebody sensible to be there. And the other one is Keith Hotwood, and the top right is Derek Leckenby's brother, Colin.
Wow. You got a great memory for all of this stuff.
Right, that's me in New York, looking like a lunatic. Carol in the leopard skin suit, and Graham and Eric looking out of it, and Graham on the left.
Here's our friend.
I think it's time I moved to Carolina.
I'm sorry, what's that?
What's the first line of Sweet America? I think.
Oh, right, of course, yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear it cut out for a second.
I think it's time I move from Carolina.
Yeah.
Something like that. I think so. Yeah, Barry.
Yeah. He's definitely written some good songs, that boy.
Really has. So me looking at Presley direct with Peter in between us, the one with the hat on the front's Colonel Parker, Barry Whitwam is on the extreme right, and the other guy with the hat behind is Tom Mappert from Cape Boy, which is a radio station in Hawaii.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Now your book is available everywhere?
I would think so. We're talking Canada, definitely. I mean, I seem to be doing a preponderance of Canada broadcasts, which is It's good. I like Canada.
And
And which part of Canada are you in?
I'm in Victoria on Vancouver Island on the West Coast.
Oh, you're on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So it's a nice town, Vancouver.
Yeah, well, I'm in Victoria, but yeah. Yeah, but I was going to say one person I didn't mention, and he was very, very early with Strawberry Studios, and 10cc was Neil Sedaka.
Yes. Okay. Well, I always loved Sedaka when I was a teenager. So that was in the 50s. And I got to know Donny Kirshner who published I'm Into Something Good. And I had a relationship with him. And I went to his office in the Brill Building and I said, whatever happened to Neil Sedaka? The Beatles have killed him stone dead, haven't they? Mm-hmm. So he said, well, yes, he doesn't have any success on records, but he's upstairs. Do you want to meet him? So I said, yes. So we went up to this room upstairs and he's playing on a piano and he plays us 4 songs, which I didn't like at all. They played a 5th song and thought, that's fantastic. I've got an artist called Tony Christie, sounds like Tom Jones. That's perfect for him. And that was, Is This the Way to Amarillo? Went back to England, got it recorded. Tony Christie got in the charts about number 18, which was a disgrace. Should have been much higher. But yeah, 30 years later, things happen. There was a charity record and it came out again and it was the biggest record in England. It was number 1 for, I think, 9 weeks. And that was Tony Christie. And that was at Sedaka. Now, Sedaka got success with the first record version, which got to 18. He decided with Johnny Kirshner, we'll go to England and we'll try a few tracks with these kids in the studio. They're good. And he was going to do 3 songs. He ended up doing 2 albums.
Wow.
And that's where the music takes me. Solitaire. All those hits that were subsequent hits in America were all done with 10cc backing on his original albums.
Love Will Keep Us Together, was that part of that too?
Yeah.
Wow, which became a huge hit for Captain Tennille, yeah.
Everything,
wow. Yeah. Amazing. Harvey, it's been fantastic talking to you. Gosh, I honestly, I could talk to you for another 2 hours, but I know you probably have to go. But holy smokes, like, I hope that one of these days we can continue this conversation because there's still
I don't mind to do it again. Yeah, maybe just concentrate on certain areas that you want to do, as opposed to trying to cover everything. It's difficult because there's so much in there. There's a lot that we've missed out as well. So we could always talk, and then I can go, and we've missed the whole Who thing, but we can do it again sometime. But I mean,
Well, give us a snippet. tell us something about the Who.
Get a phone call at 2:30 in the morning in Birmingham, Alabama. And no, I was in Montgomery, Alabama. And the guy said, are you Harvey Lisberg? Yes. I said, are you the manager of this tour that's going around Herman's, Hermits and the Who? I said, yes. Can I help you? I was playing cards at the time, 2:30 in the morning with the boys in the band. We used to play cards after a gig. He says, well, I have to tell you that in Mr. Moon's room, there's no toilet anymore. I said, what do you mean there's no toilet? He said, well, put it this way, the toilet's not attached to the wall. So I said, what do you mean? He says, the toilet is on the floor and there's water everywhere and there's this, that, and that. I think we got banned from holidays for a while. Meanwhile, Keith Moon had been dropping cherry bombs down the toilet and took the toilet off the wall.
They're like a small stick of dynamite almost, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, we used to, whenever we were on tour, we were in this big bus, you could hear bang, bang, bang. He was throwing them on the road behind us. Oh. He was a wonderful showman, a great drummer, but a little crazy. That's the story of the Who.
Oh gosh, that's hilarious. Well, thank you so much, Harvey. I really appreciate your time and thanks for everything. This has been a fantastic interview. I really, really enjoyed talking to you. I wanted to meet you for years, and this is great. Thanks a lot.
You see Barry, give him my regards.
I will. I'm actually going to call him probably today, so I will.
Okay, then. Speak to you soon. Cheers.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Check out our many other episodes and vignettes for more great content. And please like, share, and subscribe, and become a member at SocialNRGpresents.com to access all our content and earn valuable energy points just for watching.